been a month and all we've done is make Regina's face smell like a foot.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for popping in. This is the monthly roundup. Monthly appears to be a difficult word to say. Monthly roundup for April. So this is the first week of May, and the way that I'm trying to stagger the video so I'm not posting every day means that we're already into the 6th of May and I'm filming this. So I've already started my May reading. But April roundup. Loads to say. I've posted loads of videos in April, so I'll cover them first. I'll talk about the books I've read. And something really important happened as well during the month relating to books, which is awesome. And I'll say a little bit about what I'm going to read for next month. Although I've already done a video on the horror mayhem that I'm planning to get involved in. So that's going to dominate my reading next month. But I was going to talk about other things like that. But let's talk first about what I've posted in the month. So I started off early on in the month by covering the first Historathon book tag that came up. And the prompts were all based on the ancient cultures to go with the theme of the tag. It's funny actually because I was kind of tempted to do one for this second period of the Historathon, but I didn't want to tread on the toes of the guy that did the first one because it was a really good book tag, but don't look like he's going to do one, so I might do one for the second period. I don't know. But I did that anyway. And then I did a review of the new D&D film, Honor Among Thieves. So I don't do film reviews that much, but that's one more to add to the channel. I absolutely love that film, so I was compelled to do a video. It was such a good film. So if you're curious about that, watch that. I did a TBR video for my Spring Me a Melody event. So a few people have said they're going to read something for it, which is lovely. And it's quite a loose event. I'm just going to make sure that in this spring, I'm going to be reading some things that are either about music or songs or have that in the plot or written by a musician. So I've already got a couple of things lined up for the next few weeks. And yeah, I mean, I've bought things as well where I've thought, oh yeah, I'll get that because it ties in. So I know I will be taking part myself. So I did that video anyway, thinking about some of the things I might have read for that. I did a book review of High Rise, which I was going to mention in a minute. So I posted that on the channel. I did a quite an important video for me, I think, which seems to have had some interest from the people who've watched it, which is when I talked about my experience with Kindle Direct Publishing and how much it costs for me to have done the books that I've published, that I've self-published, in response to someone who did a really good video about how much it costs for them to do their books, and it cost them a lot because they just put a lot of money into it. And I didn't want people to be put off by self-publishing by them watching that video and thinking that it costs that much, because it can cost that much, but it can be a lot cheaper. So I did that video to kind of give over that message. So that was, quite a I don't know, it makes you a little bit more vulnerable if you're saying, well, this one didn't even have a proofreader and that kind of thing. So I was a little bit worried about putting it up, but that's up. So my experience in Kindle Direct Publishing. And then I did the book titles poem challenge, which is quite fun to do. And that went down really well. I think people really liked that, so it was really nice. But that was a challenge that was created by AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. And it was a really fun tag. So we did that one. And then I did a 52 card pickup challenge, which is related to my birthday that's coming up. I'm going to be 52 this year. And basically I just asked for some suggestions for reading, and I was going to put those suggestions in a hat and then pick them out. So I was going to make sure I read something that was suggested to me for my birthday. So if you're curious about what I'm saying, look that video up, because it's 52. It's prompts that are suggestions for reading based on playing cards, based on the suits. So see what you think about that. And then I did a general video about pulp science fiction. So it's something that I think is a little bit underrated. and I wanted to do a video on the value of pulp science fiction and why it's a lot of fun. It's naivety is part of the fun. People who divorce it from science fiction because it's too much like fantasy, I think are kind of missing the point of science, that science changes, our knowledge changes. But, you know, I just wanted to put that video out there. So, yeah, and again, I think it's had quite a nice response, which is really good. I then did a video announcing my involvement in Horror Mayhem and what I was going to read for it. So that was quite fun to do. I noticed that someone wrote a comment about how huge the Stephen King book was, which I'm probably going to I'm going to carry on with. So I've already read part of it. This is 4 novellas, so they said this was like way out of the remit of the event. But these are 4 different novellas, so I was planning on reading one more of them, so it would still be in the remit of the event. I was going to read the Langoliers, which I might start tonight. So, you know, it's relatively short. Oh no, actually it's not. Oh, Langoliers is actually over 250 pages, so they are right. But it's not. That's not all that though. This is 4 different stories, but that is actually over 250 pages. But anyway, I put that video up about Horror Mayhem, and most of the examples were much shorter than that. And then I did this ridiculously silly video celebrating 750 subscribers by juggling. It's a really stupid video, but hopefully that was a bit of fun. It did make some people laugh. And then I did a book haul. So for this period, there was an Easter book haul. So I had some really interesting finds recently, so I was keen to put that out there. So that was really nice. I've had some really interesting finds since, actually. I was going to talk about that later as well. I've just a few examples of some things I've found. Then I did something that, again, is a bit of a one-off that I'm really pleased that the receptionist got, which was a video called "What is Philosophy?" So it was my take on philosophy, and I was using it with reference to books that I recommended, but really I was recommending certain philosophers as well. And the reason why I was pleased that it seems to have gone down well is that I did leave some philosophers out. I was principally talking about things that interested me, so it was quite a subjective look at philosophy, although it also covered some of the main areas as well. So, you know, I did mention Plato and Descartes and Marx and some of the big names, but I know that I definitely left some people out. Some people are really into Kant and some people are really into Nietzsche, and I just didn't talk about them. So, What is Philosophy was a sort of big, a little bit more ambitious for me, I reckon. I wanted to do it right, make it useful, which I think I did. And then I was really pleased to be able to do a video saying my new book was out. So my new book is a poetry collection, and that is now out for sale. I'm really, really pleased with it. I think it's the best looking book I've done, but I'm also proud of the content. I think the poems are a really nice, unified piece of work, and yeah, I just couldn't be more pleased with it. So that's called Voices of the City. Yeah. That was really nice to put that video out. And then I did another video that was kind of influenced by me being a host of the Historathon, which was a response video to Brian from Bookish, which was history, art or science. So is it art, is it science? And my video was suggesting it was neither, it was something else, with elements of both. So again, that seems to have gone down well, which is nice. There's very positive comments underneath it. But yeah, a video that I thought was an important one to do, because when I was watching Brian's video, I was definitely getting this urge to create a response to it. And then I did a book review to one of the books that I read last month, which was Closely Observed Trains. So I did a review for that, and I was really pleased to read it. I thought it was a good book, but it was also quite interesting, and I felt like a unique book as well. So I really wanted to do a book review of that, so I did that. And then the last thing I've put up before this is my video on Star Wars and Star Trek. So because I love both of them, I thought it'd be nice, because there's been so much recent Star Wars and Star Trek that's been really good. I thought I'd do a video that covered the early stuff that got me into those things, and some stuff in between, and then talking about the recent things. like Andor and Kenobi and The Mandalorian and the Picard series, and just praising both entities and saying how much I love both things. So, I really enjoyed doing it, and again, I've had some nice responses. I did say in the video I didn't really want to know what people didn't like, because there's so much of that on YouTube. Literally, if you put anything up about Star Wars or Star Trek, almost every video is someone saying that something's crap, and it's just boring. So, I was quite specific when I said I'd love to hear what people like about those things, and people have done that, which is really interesting. So yeah, those are the videos I put up. So that's quite a lot of videos I put up this month, and I keep saying I'm trying to stagger it a bit more, but I still seem to be putting up frequent videos. So talking about my Goodreads challenge, so I'm supposed to be reading 70 books, and I'm on 25. So apparently that's 2 ahead of schedule. I'm not really worried about the schedule, but it's nice to know that I'm not neglecting my reading, because I was worried at one point during the month that I just kept being tired. I kept falling asleep when I got from work, and I was trying to read. There was one book in particular just took me a lot longer than it would have done normally, just because I kept sleeping, kept falling asleep. So it's nice that when you look at that, you think, okay, well, I'm not reading. It just feels like it a bit. So the challenge is useful from that point of view, but it's not going to be a negative thing. I'm not going to make the book challenge a negative thing. So that was the Goodreads challenge. And then the 100 album challenge, at the moment, that's on number 35. So these videos I've made are already scheduled to go up, but it's interesting to note that we're over the third of mark on these videos. So it's been a strange experience watching these videos go up and the response, because some have tanked and some of them have had loads of views, and it doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason about which ones have had a lot of views and which ones haven't, which is really funny. I mean, they're only little shorts, but yeah, there's no consistency at all in the reaction to the videos. So that's kind of interesting. But there's 35 that have gone up so far. And yeah, the most recent one was the one on, what was it? Little Feat Dixie Chicken, which is a fantastic album. But that's had over 400 views. And there are some of them, I'm pretty sure still, that haven't even gone into double figures. So for that to have over 400 views, it's just really interesting. It may be there's a lot of Little Feat fans that are looking out for those kind of things on YouTube. I don't know. But yeah, so that's where those two things lie as well. So let's talk about what I've been reading. The first book I completed in April was Pal Anderson's Tau Zero, which you'll see in a little while. Probably, I think it's due in about 2 or 3 weeks. There's going to be a book review video coming up of this. I really liked it, but I think it's a really interesting book as well. So it wasn't just a straight, oh, I liked it, but there's certain things I like about it, and it's seen as a classic. And there are some things that I've seen it be criticised for that I didn't actually relate to. So I thought that was worth putting into the video as well. So there's a full-on single book review video coming up of this book. So that was the first one I finished in April. Then I read High Rise by J.G. Ballard. So I did do a video on this, and this was a really interesting experience. So you may have seen it on the channel before, I've said it a few times that I just kept buying J.G. Ballard books. I've got 12 that I need to read, which includes the 2 massive short story collections, which are like the complete short stories, volume 1 and volume 2. That's in that group of 12 books I've bought over this period of time. But having not read that many, I'm very relieved that I think, everything I read I like. So I'm going to carry on doing my very gentle exploration of J.G. Ballard, and it's not like an official deep dive or anything, but I'm just aware that by the end of the year I would have read some of those books that I've been buying. But this was the first proper novel I've read by him, so outside the short stories, and I really liked it. I thought it was fantastic. So High Rise, J.G. Ballard. And then I finished the second book in my deep dive for Ray Bradbury. So this is the crime stories. And when they published this, they were aware of the other book that I started the deep dive with. So this is like a companion piece to it. So they're kind of their own their own kind of entity. Although what I'm going to do, I've decided that I'm going to read the third book in my deep dive, which is the October Country, and then do a video on those 3 books. So I'll clump some books together for this Ray Bradbury deep dive, because I think it makes a more interesting video, and I think people tend to like videos where you cover more than one book, more than just a video on one book, I think. So that's my plan. I'll be doing those 2 books I've just already read, and the October Country, which I'm currently reading. So that does mean that very soon there'll be a first kind of collective book review kind of thing on Ray Bradbury, since the last Ray Bradbury video, which was just more of an announcement about what I was going to do for it. So yeah, really, really interesting stories, and quite different to what I was used to from Ray Bradbury. Then I read Upgrade by Blake Crouch, and this was something I've had for ages, and I kept thinking, I need to read this, because I really like what I've read so far. So I have read Pines, Recursion, Dark Matter, I think maybe only those 3. Yes, this is the 4th Blake Crouch book I've read. And even though I really liked it, I think out of the 4, it's the one I like the least. But I still really liked it. It's really good. But like Recursion and Dark Matter, I think, are absolutely amazing. Really, really phenomenal. And Pines, I think, is really good. And this is good / really good, but not quite as good as Pines. But it's really well written. It's very intriguing. I can see a link to Michael Crichton now with this one. I didn't really see it with the others, but I can see it with that one. So Mike's book reviews often compares Blake Crouch to Michael Crichton, and I felt that more with this than I did with the others. But yeah, it was good. So there we go. I haven't done a separate book review of that, but what I'd like to do at some point, once I've read the whole of the Pines trilogy, and maybe once I've read Abandon, which is another book I've got by him, an early Blake Crouch one, I'll do a video on Blake Crouch. So that will be later in the future. And then I finished another book I've been reading for the Starathon, The Darkening Age. And this is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So I don't know if you can see it, by Catherine Nixie. I don't know. I have to do this for you to see the name. Catherine Nixie, The Darkening Age, and this is about, as you can see, when it's like it's got a subtitle, The Christian Destruction of the Classical World. So it's the reality of how Christianity took over the ancient world, and it's just really interesting, because she wrote this because she felt like it was something that it was almost like the opposite was being said to her as she was growing up, and then as she did her research, she realised that there was this quite a very, very deliberate and violent takeover of a sense of morality and a sense of religion and belief and faith and all that sort of stuff that comes from the Christians. So it's a really, really interesting book. Definitely recommend it. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, definitely recommend this. What I've decided to do, because of my interest and the way I've started the Historathon, I'm going to do a video probably in the summer where I look at different versions of heresy and different changes in faith and belief through some of these books that I've been reading. So that's in my plan. So if you're interested in the Historathon I've been doing, that's one of the videos I plan to do in the summer. So that was really, really good. Then I read, going from one extreme to the other, a comedy science fiction book called We'll Destroy the Galaxy for Cash. So this is by Yahtzee Croshaw. This is the 5th book I've read by him, I think. I've just not really worked that out for a while, but I think it's something like that. And it's a direct sequel to We'll Save the Galaxy for Food, which I love that book. And this book was good. It was funny. It was well written, but it didn't grab me as much. I've got to say, it's not quite as good. And I think there was a sense that he wanted to play with the character again, but he didn't have the same energy. So I don't know if he was as enthused as he was when he wrote the first one, but there was a different tone to it from the author's voice, if you like. So it's not as extreme, but when I read Mostly Harmless by Douglas Adams, that is extremely different to the others. Out of all the Hitchhiker's books, that is very definitely the least funny. And when I looked into it more, he was going through kind of a period of depression, and I think just the state of mind he was in, he's not going to be firing off gags left, right, and centre as he's writing. And I think it's interesting that if an author's in a different place, they might be sort of willing themselves to write a particular kind of book, but if it's not in there spiritually, if you like, if the spirit of that tone is not there, it won't come out. So I'm not saying that this isn't funny, but I do think the energy is different, and the effervescence is different. So yeah, We'll Destroy the Galaxy for Cash is good and it's fun, but not quite as good as the first one. So we're getting on to quite a long video here, so I'll try and move on a little bit. But I've also been plowing through this, and I've realised that I've started my folktales investigation with this huge tome. So if anyone was interested in this and was pleased when I announced I was doing it, and there were a few people that did that, then I apologise it's taken ages. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a certain amount, and then I'm going to jump into the Aesop's Fables book. And the Aesop's Fables book, I will probably do a video on that and where I got to on that before I finish this, so that I'm not ignoring the folktales investigation. So I'll be doing that soonish. I'd like to incorporate some of that in the May reading, so hopefully it can be something. My first proper folktales video will come out in June, hopefully, when I talk about these. But I probably wouldn't have finished that by then, but hopefully I've read enough of it so I can make a comparison with Aesop's Fables. That's my plan. And thought I'd show this because this is one of the books I'll be reading for the Storathon coming up. So I've got 3 or 4 books in mind for this month for the Storathon, but that's definitely one I'm starting very soon. So book about Britain in the 11th century going up to the 13th century there, and the 14th century I think is really interesting. So once I've read that, I'll be probably delving into the Distant Mirror, which covers the 14th century. And then, just to finish this video off as a monthly roundup, I thought I'd just mention a few books that I found that I think were quite interesting, quite sort of curious books that I found during April. So this is not a book haul, it's just 3 books, but it's just books I thought I'd love to know your opinion about this. So one of the books, I'd never heard of this. When I found it in a charity shop, I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this the same guy? So this is a book called Princess Naughty and the Voodoo Cadillac, and it's by Fred Willard, and it's actually the actor Fred Willard. He wrote 2 books. So I bought this assuming it was the same guy, the actor who was in Spinal Tap, and he was in Best in Show, and he's in loads of sitcoms and stuff. He was in Roseanne for a bit, and he's in various things. He's a really, really good actor. But a very naturally funny actor as well. So this is supposed to be funny. But I looked him up anyway, and it was the same guy, and he'd written 2 books, and I thought that was really interesting. So Princess Naughty and the Voodoo Cadillac. I'm going to read this at some point soon. Fred Willard. I had no idea he'd written a book. So that was an interesting find. I'd heard about this on BookTube. So Ice by Anna Kavan. The person that reviewed this, I'm pretty sure, what's his name? He does these really interesting and intense videos about literature. If I can find who he was and remember, I'll put a link down below. But this will definitely be a candidate for those videos where I say, books that I've read thanks to BookTubers. This is definitely one that I'd heard about on BookTube. And then I found it in a shop and I was like, I'm going to get this. It's apparently quite different and quite innovative. and like a classic that some people don't know about, and the people who do know about it feel quite passionately about it. So Ice by Anna Kavan is definitely something I'm really keen to read. But I found that and had to get it. And then this one was a curious one. So I saw this on the shelf and I was immediately struck by it. And then I read the back and I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. And I was kind of surprised that I hadn't heard of it. And it seems to be this little secret gem from what I gather. And I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's sparked me into thinking I could do a general video about gender in science fiction, because that definitely is something that's covered here. But there are some videos about this on YouTube. Well, not many to be fair, but there's lots of audio versions of this on YouTube. But yeah, an intriguing book, The Clockwork Man, by Evie Odell, and yeah. Let me know if you've read this, because I'd love to know, and I'd love to know what you think of it, because it really intrigued me. So those are a few books I found. There's loads of other things that I've found over the recent times. I don't know if there's another book or video coming up in a month's time or something. I've got my birthday coming up, so I'll probably do a post-birthday book haul. So there may be some other things I found recently that I could go into that. But yeah, there we are. April, really interesting month where I challenged myself a little bit on some of the videos I did, and I had some really good reading from the books I read in April. And now we're into May. As I said, Horror Mayhem's on the go. The Storathon's still happening. My Ray Bradbury thing's still happening. I'm now on the third Ray Bradbury book, The October Country, which is like a replacement for Dark Carnival, which you can't. It's very difficult to get. You can get it, but it's very hard to get. So most of those stories are in The October Country. So there we are. Please comment below on anything that I've talked about if you relate to any of that. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Paint me a picture